Hello, good evening, my friends out there. Uh, Today is what I would call a historical day in Uganda. The president of Uganda today led a march against corruption in our country. Corruption has been an evil in all sectors of our country. Whether you talk about health, whether you talk about education, talk about any walks of life, depending on what walk of life you're in. Now, I am not a politician. I am not in politics. I am not in any other walk of life. My part is football. So if we were saying corruption out today, then everybody should stand against corruption in the field of their expertise, in the field that concerns their lives and our livelihoods. Our livelihoods are dependent on those things. If you're in agriculture, you say no to corruption in agriculture. If you're in politics, say no to corruption in politics. If you're in health, say no to corruption in all societies, because corruption is the reason why we do not get the services that we are entitled to as citizens of the country. Like I said in an earlier post, no man is above the law and no one should be below the law. And we should not ask or request anybody to abide by the law. So, in my case, I'm in football. So, we as football people should be saying no to corruption in football, because there's corruption in football, and we are saying no to corruption in football, and Magogo should go. It should be the statement right now, because this is the person who has presided over a very corrupt institution. Of course, when we're talking about corruption, there are people who will try to defend it and say that the rest of us are all corrupt. But I want to put it to all of you out there who are watching this. You cannot judge me when I'm not your leader. Everybody might be corrupt, but I am not the leader of the Ugandan football. I am not the one who does the things that Mr. Moses Magogo has done. I'm not the leader. So if I'm not the leader, those standards cannot apply to me. So the standards will apply to the leader of the federation. So we are saying today, since Uganda has actually come out to agree that corruption is the reason why we are having problems, then we, the football people, are saying we should stop with this corruption. Corruption should stop in football. Impunity should stop in football. People should stop using this game as their personal toy which they can use to play around with. Because of corruption, people in football are not being paid. Players are not being paid. Coaches are not being paid. Referees are not being paid. And when a referee is asking for money, then we make a hula balu out of it. But we're asking the question, by the time this referee is doing it, how many people are behind this referee? And all that we have talked about, and this has been the corruption in football. Yeah? You have seen clubs being docked points, and the reason they are giving you are very flimsy. And all this stems from corrupt tendencies. Players being called to the national team, so full of corruption. So full of corruption. Players paying to be called to the national team, and they're being asked for money. All this is corruption. So, who is in charge of this? Who is in charge of this? The person in charge of it is Mr. Moses Magogo. Where does the corruption stem from? Go back to the books. Let's open them. You are corrupt, you forge a constitution of the federation. Is that corruption? I think that's corruption. It's a felony. It's a misdemeanor. It's more than corruption. You fight everybody who has invested interest in football because you want to claim that you are the person who loves football more than anybody else, more than all of us, because for you, you're allowed to do everything you want. Weeks ago, I talked about the creation of leagues in 2012. Yeah? And people have forgotten that. We have not forgotten. The person who created the second league in Uganda is Moses Magogo. Moses Magogo created FSL, which was not the legitimate league. That is corruption. Moses Magogo created another sports club, Villa. That is corruption. The current sports club, Villa, is not legitimate. Is that corruption? What have they done? So, corruption, if we are talking about corruption today, and the president of Uganda has led the march against corruption, then we, the football people, because like I said before, I am not an agriculturist. I am not a doctor. I am not a politician. So which is the field that hurts me the most? Which is the field where I am supposed to benefit? Which is the field where my livelihood is supposed to be derived from? What about the livelihoods of other people? Coaches, footballers, referees, owners of football clubs. All this corruption is the reason why this game has not grown to the extent that it should be benefiting the owners. The club owners should be making money, not donors. The club owners in Uganda are donors. The football coaches are doing pro bono work. The referees are doing part-time. But the only professional people are the ones who work at the federation, who get paid, who get allowances, who get travel reimburses, and what? Is that corruption or not? Corruption is actually eating up the core fabric of the game to the extent that you don't watch a football match and you feel like you've watched something that's correct. Isn't that a problem? Recently, there was a game between, is it Vipers and Maroons Football Club that ended 1-1 on the field of play. Correct, no problem. But what about what happened after? A player had a yellow card. Yeah, okay. A player had a yellow card. Who was supposed to inform this football club? Because we have people who take records. UPL. Why didn't UPL? Because UPL used to do it before. Send information of what are they doing? Who informed? But then later on, who informs Vipers anyway? Because is Vipers taking the stats for Maroons Football Club? Because how does Vipers know that Maroons has a person in the yellow card? All this is corruption. All this is corruption. People are trying to because the person who told Vipers that Maroons had a third yellow card is from UPL. Instead of UPL informing Maroons, don't play that player, they decided to let the player play and then give, it is all kind of sham. This sham thing that we have been involved in for all this time. So, like I said, today we have come out and said no to corruption in football. Football should be taken back to the people who own it. Magogo does not own football. Ntege does not own football. Katende Maribu does not own football. Yeah? Football is owned, it's a public good. And people try to say, football is for the owners. Who are the owners of football? Owners of football are the people, the fans on the villages, the players who play it. But players do not benefit. Players in Uganda are demanding, all clubs demanding salaries and what? Why? It's because the corruption. Owners of these football clubs are not allowed to sit and make their personal decisions. I want a football chairman to come out and say they have agreed on anything they've ever decided that in UPL. Never. These people just sit there and come out with all these kinds of things and throw them around, and people have to obey and go on with it. So, my message today, like all other football people around, you must come out and stand and be counted. Because if you're in football, football should benefit you. Football should benefit you. You are a stakeholder. If you're a fan, come out. Football should benefit you. Your club is doing badly because of corruption of the federation. It might not be that your club is actually doing well. Because I feel sorry for a club like Sports Club Villa. I don't support it. I only sympathize with them because Villa being strong is good for the rest of the teams. But first of all, Villa is a fake team. The team that is playing in the league is not the team that's supposed to be playing there. But we have pushed it under. And all this is done by Mr. Magogo at FIFA House. That's why he can call a Villa executive to sit them at FIFA House. Have you ever seen a football club sitting at the federation? A football club with its directors and everybody, they go and sit at the federation just because they want to control them. All these corrupt tendencies. So, if we do not get rid of these clubs, because Magogo is supposed to be in football, because he's part of football, we are not saying get out and please don't come back. No, we are saying go to Mutumbwe, Lions, like you are there before you destroyed the team. Yeah. And you come back and debate with people. Because you're fighting with people. Magogo is a person who fights with people. And yet he himself failed to run a football club. But he's telling people, football club chairman, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. You go and run a football club for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, like some of these people have done. Then you come up and tell the people what to do. Instead of using your unscrupulous manners to come and what. Because people might be saying that this is about the person, but the person is the one who is masquerading as the leader. First of all, he's masquerading as the leader of this federation. And nobody is going to ask this, because if you say it to people, say that, oh, no, you people are against the federation. You people are against cranes. Every time something comes up, people are against cranes. Go back and look at these things. The last time I posted opinions of the Solicitor General and Attorney General, the opinions that have been held before. But now they're trying to throw around one which came recently. And I was asking the question, did the Solicitor General read his file by the time he purportedly wrote? Okay, I'm thinking he didn't write it, because normally such things are being written by Magogo himself. Magogo has written all these letters. He writes from FIFA, he writes himself. He congratulates KCC FC Football Club for how many times do you see in the world? I mean, Real Madrid. Have you ever had Real Madrid being congratulated by letter by the UEFA president? Okay. But imagine the FIFA president congratulates KCC Football Club in Uganda for winning the championship. All this is fraud, and this is corruption. Corruption does not mean that you steal money and put it in your pocket. No. Corruption means everything that is illegal and is done for personal or financial benefit. All that is corruption. It's not about you took money, because most people think that, oh, you're talking about money, he stole money, or he stole tickets. No. The things that have been done in football that have created the lacunas in the game, that have stopped the game from expanding and people from benefiting from it. The reason why most football people live lives of paupers after they have played this game, especially in Uganda, is because we have failed as the people in football to stand up and put a foot to it and say no to this. Because people in the federation don't even care if clubs make money to pay their players. No, they don't care. All they want are rules and regulations. No, we want you to have contracts. Now, you're asking a person to contract players when you're sure he doesn't have money to pay them. Because even that is corruption itself. Because if you're asking a chairman of a football club to contract 30 players and you're sure he has no income, what are you trying to do? What is it you're trying to do? And yet you're the one in control of and manipulating all the processes of sponsors. All the sponsors, Magogo has to deal with Airtel. He must be the one, his company receives a commission. His company receives a commission from, is that corruption? That is corruption. Yeah? Magogo was running a company that received commission from a sponsor. But Magogo Zanu negotiates every deal that comes in Uganda football. That is corruption. You are the leader. You're not supposed to do that. So, gentlemen and ladies who are watching me out there, so since today, the president has given us the leeway to hold people accountable. Like I said, I am not in agriculture. I am not a politician. I am not in other fields. My field is in sports, and particularly football. Because I will not talk about things that in athletics, in boxing and what, because I am not involved. I have been involved in this sport for all my life. All of you who are watching me don't know me for anything else. Because I am so many things. So actually, some people think that probably I do nothing. I am a retired prisons officer. I am a teacher, a lecturer. I am so many other things that people don't know. But the most important is what you know me for. Football. I have been in football for the longest. So everybody who knows Coach Asaf knows Coach Asaf because of the game football, not anything else. So it is the game that has made me what I am. And because of what I am willing to speak on behalf of this game, to sacrifice everything. Because I would be comfortable today, probably sitting on the touchline in anywhere, in Uganda, coaching. Yeah? But you coach a team and you're sure your players are not paid. I have coached teams like that. Probably the owner of the club might be sympathetic enough to pay you as the coach. But imagine a coach is coaching a team that is not paid, and you don't want to blame the owner of the football club because you know the reasons as to why this man cannot afford to do what? To pay his players. But the other thing will be, is because I'm a football coach, the federation wants to put us down. Football coaches in Uganda are not supposed to speak. We are supposed to be docile people who don't understand, and that is what they term us like that. Football people are termed as abatasoma, abatategeera, but we understand this sport because it's what we do. We have become professionals in the sport that we play in. And the good thing that all of you people who are watching me today are involved in sports, especially this game, in a certain way. If you're a coach, it is your duty to get facilitated well. If you're a referee, it's your duty to get facilitated. If you're a player, you're supposed to. But you can imagine, when you talk about football in Uganda, the first name that comes to everybody's mind is Magogo. Magogo. Long live Magogo. Or Magogo the greatest. I asked Mr. Hamed Hussein that day, did this man score an important goal for us to qualify? Is he the one who scored the goal? Was it Onyango the one who was keeping the goal? No. Let us stop glorifying these people who lead the sports. We should glorify the people who participate in these sports. These are the people that make the sport. It is the player first. It is the coach. It is the referee who was in the center of the game. Did he do good? Did he do bad? These are the things we should be right. But in Uganda, when you talk about football, like how Magogo took us to Africa Cup of Nations. Now, and I asked many of my colleagues, is he the first one to do this? Actually, I did not know who was the president of the Federation in 1978 until people started glorifying these heroes of nowadays. That's when I had to look back and find out, this is the person who was the president of the Federation then. So, because of corruption, people are living destitute lives after and completion of this game. Why? Because during their prime times to earn, these people are being curtailed from earning. And there is no way you can live a decent life after anything if you have not been paid throughout. Right now, because I'm a retired prisons officer, I'm receiving my pension because I worked. Now, what about the footballers who spend their lives playing this game? How do they get, if he was not paid during his playing time, for crying out loud, then how come you come out and say that they did not look after themselves? They did not look after themselves because you curtailed their earning platforms. Okay? You disabled the clubs, you disabled the referees, you disabled everything in the sport so that you are in control of it, and then you start dishing out. That's why you meet the Mr. Intege's. I know Intege for crying out loud. I know him. He's from Luzira, and he knows me. I know him. So the difference him when he was a player and when he is working in the federation is very, very big, and that should show you where the difference is. When Intege played football, he didn't have anything. He did not have anything. He should not tell people lies. He is only getting money today because he's working in a corrupt place. And that is why they are all making noise. You see these Afrikaners also making noise. Because of the corruption tendencies. When these people were in football, they did not earn any money. Ntege did not earn any money when he was in football. He only earned a name. That is all. Ntege is only known for playing football. But after that, he didn't until he was picked and given that job. But that should not be the case. The case should be that people like Ntege should make their livelihoods not being submissive to the wrong things. He's an ex-footballer. Take up anything else, and even cannot even aspire. It's even okay to aspire for the leadership of the federation. It is not okay. Yeah, it's not okay. If you say you want to become a leader in Ugandan football, then they say, "Oh, you're fighting football." Why shouldn't I aspire to become a leader in the football? I asked Mr. Magogo. I'm as old as he is. Yeah? What makes him think he's more suitable to be a leader of the federation than the rest of us? Yeah? Because of all this is the corruption from the constitution, how they made the constitution, how they've been fidgeting around with the registration of FIFA. All this is corruption. All this is corruption. Please, people out there, the football people, go out there, read. This information is there for you to access. Go and find out FIFA is registered as who. Let us not be saying, oh, as long as we play football. No. Anything that is not bound by law is bound to make mistakes. And these are the mistakes they have been making. They make FIFA Limited, it fails. They make Nkwanga Construction, it fails. They go to Scoreline, it fails. Now they go and masquerade as FIFA, the trust, which they are not. But they are masquerading. They are masquerading. But all this is corruption. All that I've detailed to you is corruption. Breaking the law for personal benefit. Who is benefiting from football today in Uganda? Who is benefiting? There are very few people benefiting from football in Uganda today. It's just a handful of people out there who benefit from this game. But the major stakeholders, the footballers, because I can speak for footballers because I have coached footballers for 22 years. So I know the plight of footballers. I know footballers that spend a year without picking a penny because the owner of the football club cannot afford to pay them. And sometimes the best thing the owner of the football club will do is to just give you a platform and hope that one of the big three teams in Uganda comes and picks you up. And imagine, for you to get paid, you have to play either for KCC, or those days Villa, and maybe Express. But now these days even playing for Villa is at your own risk and peril. Okay? Playing for Express is also the same thing. So it is safer to actually play for maybe institutional teams, maybe KCCA, URA, Maroons, those ones that probably will get monies from the government coffers. But for the other players, you're like, you are living at God's mercy. You're only hoping that somebody will come in and chip in 10,000, 100. I have given footballers money all my life. So should a coach be paying footballers to play for him? No. The institution of football should have created ways for which these football clubs should make money. But how will they make money if the owners of the football club never sit at round tables to discuss these issues? These issues are... somebody sits in his house, maybe in Mutunde there, he sits in his house, he sits at FIFA house, and comes out with the laws and regulations. And that will not benefit the player, the owner of the club, no, himself. How do I keep myself as the president? How do I keep myself earning the monies that come from FIFA, CAF? So how do I be the one to spend it and what? And then you come up and say that, Cranes went to what? Cranes, ladies and gentlemen, Cranes is only 11 players. 11 players. They play 4 times a year. That cannot be the hallmark of football in a country. They play 11 players at most with 3 substitutes because the rest will not play. Now, if 14 players play a football match and they play 4 times a year, then what about these others? A club has 30 footballers. We have 16 clubs in the UPL. We have about 20 in the big league. We have, how many clubs do we have in Uganda? How many players are those? How many livelihoods are those? So, ladies and gentlemen out there, stop this thing of thinking that People out here are after this particular individual. No, this particular individual is actually the president. That is why we shall speak about him, and because he has put himself in the limelight. He wants everything around football to rotate around him, so that when you speak about football, the next thing that comes out of your mouth is himself. And yet, what should come out of our mouth is, where are all the stakeholders benefiting from it? The sponsor should benefit. Sponsors will not sponsor our game in Uganda if our game is still as corrupt as it is, because we don't have accountability. The FIFA will tell you they have accountability. They don't have accountability. They fake up their things and throw them to delegates. I have friends who are delegates. They will tell you they just go there, pick their allowances, and this man comes and throws in whatever he throws in, and because even he's was stepping down. Was he supposed to step down like that? I step down, then I'll come back on 10th, as if the company is yours. And people have not seen that there's something that went wrong there. How does somebody come to you and say, I am going to step down and I'll come back on the 10th December? Is the company yours? Did your father give it to you? Did your father give it to you? I have a friend here, Mate. In light of Attorney General's guidance, I'm sure how they will relate after the storm is over and Magogo is still boss. You see, the thing is that Attorney General has given, I don't want to, first of all, Mr. Mate, I do not want to believe that what that Attorney General wrote is the Attorney General who wrote that. Now, that is another thing we have to talk about for another day, because we know these documents, how these documents have been coming out from these particular people. 2, there are 3 other documents which have been written by the Attorney General. And one of them is the late Nyombi, who wrote it. Very many have come and have said how illegal that place is. But because the corruption that we're talking about have let these people go on and thrived. Now, it doesn't matter when the storm is over, how we shall relate to this man. No. It doesn't matter anymore. You see, if I'm right, I'll be right. Even after 10 years, I'll still be right. If I'm wrong, then let the documents prove me wrong. Yeah? Because now, most of you don't even know that these people have registered this FUFA as a private business. But nobody is questioning it. If we say it, people think we are lying. No, it is the truth. Go out there, the company, the register of companies is there, and find out who is registered as Coaline. Who is registered as Coaline? Find out. Who was registered as Nkwanga? Who was registered as FUFA Limited? And all the things by law are prohibited in Uganda. Also read the law of Uganda. Now, the problem is this, that for some of us who have taken time to be educated, because it's not a crime to be educated. It's not a crime. But people try to criminalize it in football. Trying to say that football is for people who are uneducated. Now, I'm actually privileged that my friend Frank Rusa is watching, and Frank Rusa has been discussing about the things of corruption on other forums. But for us who are in the football thing, is that corruption in our game is what has killed us and what is not helping us thrive. Because today I might be a coach, but tomorrow I might be a club owner. Because most people think that if anybody comes out and talks about the corruption in what, then you want to be president of the federation. No, we can only have one president at a time. We can even have one president to wait 8 years or 10 years. It doesn't matter. For as long as this president is following the rules and regulations and playing by the book, I don't have to be president. I'm more interested in coaching and owning my own football club, owning my football academy. That is my realm, really. Whoever is president, let them be president. Let them do their political stuff. And let the rest of us do the technical stuff that we are more conversant with. But what brings us out of our comfort zone is when somebody makes your comfort zone very uncomfortable. Because I am a coach, and I'm supposed to be comfortable in my zone. But you make sure I'm uncomfortable by making sure I don't get paid. So why won't I look up and look at you? Because we have read these things and understood them. These laws that people are throwing about. You know, the only person who interprets football law in Uganda is Mr. Moses Magogo. At first, we used to think he was a guru until we started opening these books and actually reading them ourselves. Because of the education that we have. You read it and you're like, wait a minute, is this what it says? This is not what it says. You're misinterpreting it, and all that is corruption. Because misinterpretation, misrepresentation, all that is corruption. And corruption is not, most of you should not think that corruption is about getting money and putting it in your pocket. Because that's what most people are thinking about. Corruption stems way back. Okay? You forge documents, you misrepresent, you misinterpret. All that is corruption, because when you misinterpret something, it is in your favor. And in your favor, what do you get? That should be what we should be at. So, I will not take so much time today, but I thought I should come out today and express it on behalf of all my football family. The footballers, the coaches, the referees. Come out. Let's stand together and redefine this sport of ours. Because football is a big sport, a big industry that can make us all comfortable people. It's not about who is the president, but the president should be a person, first of all, who is elected by law, not elect himself, like the one we have. The one we have elected himself through a company that is not the federation which we subscribe to. FIFA is there for us who know what FIFA is. But the company that is running has directors. And those directors are the ones who own that. And the ones who are trying to masquerade as the owners of that. So that is the corruption we are talking about. Before we can remove that corruption, then the rest of us will, all of us, not the rest of us, all of us will not benefit from this sport. Players will continue having these huge contracts which they will not be paid. And that one is for sure. And I'm talking to you from an informed point of view, even if you have a contract, because I have had contracts before, and most of the times you have problems with the contract. If you have a contract and it's not going to be paid, then there's no reason as to why you even have it in the first place. So if you have a contract and it's not going to be paid, there's no reason for us to believe that football is going anywhere. So the only way that we can heal this is by making sure we strip this thing down. Strip it down from the top, rebrand this thing, come back together, follow the rules and regulations as they are supposed to be. Let us register this federation of ours, which is already registered anyway, because the thing is already registered. The thing is already registered, and the documents are there, although people are feigning to be the ones. Call everybody together, reconstitute everything about football, and then from there we can sit together. Let the people sit and make decisions that concern them. But I really feel sorry for Premier League sides, and you see them struggling. You see Toro is struggling. I mean, you look at them, Busoga, Villa, everybody is struggling, because even the big ones, because if Villa has the biggest following, they should have the highest source of income, but they don't. The other day, when they were going to Onduparaka, we are told the players almost didn't go because they were demanding for money. Imagine that is happening. But all that is because the owners of football club take on things that they cannot do. You find they have obligations to pay at the end of the month in millions. And yet a Villa game will make them 3 million. But the payroll of Villa could be about like 17 million or 18 million shillings a month. Now, for a team that makes 3 million, how do you pay 18 million? Realistically, how? If we're not telling ourselves lies. So people come up from your high horses. Eh? And what? And make sure that we come down, talk about these things in a more civilized manner, and get away. So today, I'm not going to, because usually it's about almost ranting, because we love this game. We shall rant and rant and rant, no matter how much we are trying to be intimidated. You know, because some of them intimidated by throwing words around. Others are calling us even mad people, to the extent, because people who cannot debate with us will call us mad people. If you cannot debate, if you don't call me mad, debate, make your point. Mr. Ntege, make your point. Always make your point. Stop calling people mad people, all those things, all those words you use. I know where you come from. So probably that is how you are brought up. But for the rest of us, we say, no, I'll speak what it is, and we go. So today, we say no to corruption in all sectors of the spheres, all sectors and spheres of the country. Let's say no to corruption, because corruption is the evil to most of the fabric of this nation. But for us in football, where our livelihoods are, where we expect our children, because I cannot believe that a child in a 15, 16-year-old child in UK, in England, in Italy, in what could be making 5,000, 10,000 pounds a week in football, and they don't have to have done anything else. And for us, our children, we are not aspiring for them to get there. How will they get there if we have corrupted the whole fabric of football in Uganda? We need our children to go, even if my child doesn't play for the national team, even if he's not one of them, but he can make a livelihood in football. But where does it start? It starts from Uganda. It starts from we, the people, making it increasingly lucrative for people to allow their children to play football. Because in Uganda, most parents are very skeptical when you ask them to let their children play football. Why? Because we have a history of failures, which is very bad. Yeah? And yet this game can give us opportunities. But the history of failures does not allow parents to allow their children to play sport, especially football. And yet football could be the source of an income for a whole clan. One person who plays football in a clan can actually make a difference for all of them. One person. And we have seen these things, even in Uganda, for the likes, because if you look at the Ibrahim Seka Jazz, and the stories are there. But should it be only one person in a generation, or it should be a generation of people? So that is where I will leave it for you. For you out there, if you're a footballer, if you're a coach, if you're a referee, if you're a football administrator, if you're a club owner, and you do not stand up to say no to the corruption in football, then you are digging your own grave. 10 years from today, you will not even allow your children to look at the ball. And yet this is a sport that could have made a difference in your lives. So for us, a few of us who have struggled, because I cannot say so many bad things about football, because football has, like I said, given me a platform even to speak to you, because you know who I am because of the game, not for anything else. Now that you know who I am, let me tell you that we can make a difference in this sport. We can make it better. It's not about football in Uganda. It's not about the Cranes. Football in Uganda should be about KCC. Should be about Villa. Should be about Express. Should about be Okello. Should about be Poloto. Should Mukwala. Those are the people we should be talking about in football. It should be about Abdallah Mubiru. Should be about us in football, not the political people. So, like I said, hit me up. Let's discuss. I will not get tired to speaking about football, but let's come out. Let's all come out and try to make sure that we make this game better for us today and for the generations to come. So, with this, I wish you a good night.